Hi everybody, this is Debbie Eno from Teacher Success Coach. Day 1, week 3 in the classroom. Well. It's still challenging, and what I'm grateful for today. I'm grateful for life, that I got up this morning and I was able to see my family, etc. So that's something to be really grateful about, because having life and having health, everything else comes after. I'm also grateful for the fact that I am not a new educator, because if I was a new educator, there is no way in this current climate I would actually continue in a career in teaching, because the whole situation right now is extremely challenging. It's also very tiring, and also it's also uncertain. Whereas the fact that I am an experienced educator, I have actually known the joy and reward of teaching, of being in the education sector. So even though right now we're having a lot of challenges, it's like riding the waves. I'm okay with that, because I know for myself this time will pass. Also know that education is a beautiful area to be in, and it's fantastic because I'm loving it and I've always loved it. So in that sense, that's no problem. But if I was new to the education sector, there is no way out of continue, because I would not know what it would be like or what it is like being in the classroom on a nice regular basis, because right now it's challenging. My win today is the students have actually begun to embrace and understand the areas for revision, my year 13 groups. Last week, they were all over the place. They were uncertain, they were blaming, they were complaining, they were anxious. All of that was in play. But today I've actually, narrowed down everything, so they've got the topics that we'll be looking at, and they know what is likely to come up for exams, because everything is narrowed down. So they're kind of a little bit more settled, which is quite good. The whole thing, yes, is week 3, but it is still extremely challenging, because the students are now projecting out onto the educators, because they're very anxious. They're anxious, they're stressed, they're concerned, and they're just all over the place. One of some of the reasons for the concern is they need to get the grades to go to university. That's all they keep on saying to me. Miss, I need the grades to go to university. I've got to get it. And all that is adding to the students' anxiety, because one of the things we need to realize is they've been on the lockdown for all this time, and now they're going back into the classroom, and we now want to instill discipline in them, and we also want them to follow instructions and all of that. It's not really happening as such. So coupled with that is the added anxiety of the grades that they need to go to university. Whereas last year, the pressure wasn't as great, I don't feel, on educators and students, because at least, our assessment was okay to get them through. But now, it's not only our assessment, they're also having a written assessment under exam pressure. So God only knows what they'll be like, bearing in mind they're being confined to being locked down, and now we're confining them now again to having to do this assessment. It's not being called exam, it's called assessment, but at the same time they're still doing it under exam condition. So that's an added stress for the students, and it's also an added stress for the educators, because we're not too sure what is happening, because we are anxious in terms of, oh my goodness, what's going to happen? Would they actually succeed? Have they got an opportunity to redo? There's so many other factors going on in there. And the students are projecting onto us. And it is very tiring, basically. It is tiring. But the students are beginning to understand in a way. They're beginning to come along with us. So it's interesting. It's interesting times where we're in now. My concern is the students. And another concern is they're having to do an assessment and they're very stressed because they did some work already for the courses and now we're giving them a written assessment under exam condition, bearing in mind they're all, on lockdown. So that's a major concern of mine in terms of how are they going to be able to cope. I don't know. But at the same time, they're beginning to cope. They're coping a little bit better. Today was a little bit easier, although they're still all over the place. Because one student said to me, "Miss, you need to shout at us so that we could be quiet." No, I don't believe in shouting at students because it's quite sad. Because these students have been so conditioned in the sense that you need to shout at them for them to be quiet. And I say to them, no, you guys need to be quiet without me shouting at you. And something they've said to me as well, that the past educators they've had have always shouted at them. So that's all they know. They know how to, pay attention to shouting. And I then say to them, this is the behaviorist theory, whereby you've been conditioned through different methods in order to be quiet. And as a psychologist, we need to change that paradigm. So educators, avoid shouting at the students. It's better to start talking to them because then it becomes their reality where everything they do is through shouting and they feel shouting is the only way forward. And that's wrong. Because when they want me to do the same, I cannot do the same. I say to them, I don't believe in shouting. I believe in us having a dialogue. Yes, you guys are very, very noisy. And although other teachers have said to me, oh, if you give one or two of them detention for behavior, probably the rest of them would realize that they need to get themselves together, etc. But I don't believe that's right. I believe that they need to be aware of the behavior pattern in terms of the disruption it's causing. Also, we need to be mindful that these students have been under lockdown. So, we cannot expect miracles to happen in 3 weeks because it would take some time for us to actually get them back into the swing of things. So, as I said to my student today, sorry, I'm not giving you guys attention. I'm not shouting at you guys. I'm just going to be waiting. You guys are making noise, you're chatting, I'll just wait. Because I know there's a lot of things you guys have to say, but at the same time, I'll be waiting, but I'm just reminding you guys that you need to be quiet because we need to proceed on to, getting the topics done. So mindful educators, there's no point in shouting at students because that becomes the reality. And that's the way they feel that education have to be, whereby when educators shout at the student, they become quiet, and that's repeating all the time. And the only way they're going to become quiet is through shouting at them. It's a no-no. So that's something we need to be mindful. Anyway, guys, this is week 3. We are breaking up next Thursday. I must say, I am looking forward to that because I'm quite tired already. I've got 3, I think it's either 2 or 3 sets of groups of students having to do assessment. And I have to mark this assessment before we leave next Friday because we finish next Thursday. So I've got one group of students doing assessment on Friday this week. So I'm hoping to mark that over the weekend. And I've got another set, I think I've got 2 sets doing next week. So I have to mark that before they leave because I need the student to at least know where they are and the grade they have achieved before we actually go off on holidays, because at least it's going to make them settle and they'll know what is happening, etc., and what they need to do for the next step. Anyway, guys, this is where I'm at in terms of the education. It's week 3 of being in the classroom. It's fantastic being in the classroom. It's not all doom and gloom as it's sung in. It's fantastic being in the classroom. Looking at the student faces is brilliant. They're excited. It's a breath of fresh air in terms of, where they're at. But at the same time, we need to be mindful that they've gone through a journey. So there's no point in shouting at them and expecting them to be sorted straight away. We just have to gradually, talk to them and be empathetic and listen to what they're talking about and the anxiety which they demonstrated, the fact that they're projecting the anxiety onto us, because the school I'm in, I am the fourth teacher these groups have had. So could you imagine, they've had other teachers who have not been subject specialists, and now I'm a subject specialist. I'm still not getting them because there's this mistrust. They're not too sure if I'm going to be staying, how long I'll be staying for, because I'm covering someone who is on maternity leave. And they've had, as I say to me, they've had 4 teachers already. So it's like all that uncertainty and anxiety coupled with coming back from being on lockdown for all this time. So could you imagine, if you were in this student's position, you'll be just as anxious. So there is no point in me shouting, there is no point in me giving them a detention. It's a waste of time. I just have to be gentle with them and, just talk to them and just nurture them, basically. I feel my role right now for this group of students that I'm teaching, I think it's 1, 2, 3, I think it's 4 or 5 groups, because there's one teacher that was teaching all these groups. So my role is to nurture them and just be gentle with them and empower them. Those are the things I really have to do with them, and I've been doing with them. And hopefully, before we leave next week, I would get them more or less much more in a relaxed position, and also in a position where of greater trust in the fact that, well, I'm likely to be there longer than the rest of them. And the other trust is I'm a specialist in the subject. So it's hard work, because just imagine within yourself, when you don't trust somebody, how long it takes for that trust, for that person to gain your trust. That's exactly what's happening with my students I'm teaching, because the anxiety coupled with everything else. Anyway, guys, but in spite of all of that, I'm enjoying it. I'm also enjoying the journey of getting them to trust me and getting them to become empowered and nurturing them in the process of getting there. So it's quite nice, but it's also quite challenging. But I'm getting there. It's better today than it was last Monday on the 8th of March. So it's a gradual process, but I'm getting there. Anyway, guys, take care. Have a fantastic evening, night, morning, wherever you are, and I'll see you tomorrow evening with another day in the life of Debbie Eno in the physical classroom, because it is the life of Debbie Eno in the physical classroom, with my set of students, trying to empower them and gaining their trust, things like that. But it's fantastic, but it's just a journey which will take time. Anyway, take care. Bye-bye. Thanks a lot for watching.